If you think raising a child guarantees a soft place to land in old age, stay with me. My name is Evelyn, I'm 74, and tonight my own son taught me a lesson with the flat of his hand. Before I go on, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. The slap comes out of nowhere. 1 second, I'm braced on the kitchen counter, trying to catch my breath, and the next, his palm explodes against my cheek. Hot, sharp, blinding. My head whips sideways. I taste metal. My teeth cut the inside of my mouth. I freeze, one shaking hand rising to my face like it belongs to somebody else. Smoke curls from Naomi's cigarette, thin and lazy, hanging between us. My son just hit me. Caleb, my boy. The baby I rocked in a one-bedroom over a laundromat. The young man whose college I paid for with diner tips and crumpled bills I hid under my mattress. That son just struck his own mother across the face. Maybe now you'll stop complaining, he says. His voice is flat, like he's talking to a stranger. My chest tightens. My lungs burn. I can't pull air in fast enough. I had only asked one thing. No smoking around me. One small rule the lung doctor begged me to respect because my lungs are failing. This disease doesn't care whose house it is or how much Naomi's stress relief cigarettes cost. Naomi laughs softly. She leans against the marble island in black leggings and a cropped sweatshirt, ponytail high, eyes on me like I'm dirt on her floor. Her cigarette glows between two manicured fingers. Caleb turns away from me and walks to her. He kisses her forehead like nothing happened. "You ready, babe?" he asks. "Always," she says. "I booked that rooftop place downtown." She grinds the cigarette out in a tiny ceramic dish shaped like a seashell. I bought that dish at a yard sale years ago. Their front door closes. The Lexus engine purrs. Then it's just me, the hum of the fridge, and the ringing in my ears. I shuffle down the hall to the room they called the guest room, a bed piled with pillows. The only thing that's really mine is the photo on the nightstand. Caleb at college graduation, cap crooked, my arm around his shoulders. That love was real once. I pick up my phone. The screen lights the red swelling on my face. Tomorrow, there will be a purple handprint. Evidence. I scroll through my contacts. Names I haven't touched in years. People I once helped when they had nothing. My thumb stops on Daniel Ortiz. He was a scared law student when he slept on my couch. Now he's an elder rights attorney in Houston. I press call. He answers on the second ring. "Miss Evelyn, it's been a long time." "My son hit me," I say. Silence. Then his tone changes. "Tell me what's going on." I give him the short version. The slap, the smoke, how Caleb and Naomi make me hand over $500 from my $1,200 disability check every month for the house. Danny exhales slowly. When he speaks again, his voice is steel. "Don't move anything. Don't erase a single text. Don't argue. We're going to build a case." A case? Against my own son? I end the call and stare at my reflection. Somewhere under the hurt, something old and stubborn wakes up inside me. Let them enjoy their rooftop dinner. Tomorrow, they'll find out exactly who they hit. If you've ever sat in a quiet house and listened to your own heartbeat just to remind yourself you're still here, then you'll understand what that night felt like for me. My cheek throbbed with every beat. My lungs rattled like loose change, but my mind was clearer than it had been in months. I didn't sleep. I lay there in that cold guest room, white curtains, gray walls, a mattress too soft to hold an old woman steady, and waited for morning to come creeping through the blinds. At 7, I heard their footsteps upstairs, Naomi humming, Caleb's electric toothbrush buzzing, normal sounds, ordinary sounds, like yesterday didn't happen, like he didn't strike the woman who raised him. I took another picture of my cheek. The purple had deepened overnight. His fingerprints were outlined on my skin like someone had stamped me. Evidence. I dressed slow, my body aching, my breath shallow. The cardigan I chose was soft, one Caleb bought me years ago when he still remembered holidays. At 8 sharp, I stepped into the kitchen. They sat at the table. Coffee, yogurt, eyes glued to their screens. They didn't look up when I entered. "Good morning," I said. My voice didn't shake. Caleb muttered something that might have been morning. Naomi didn't respond. I poured my coffee, held the mug steady, sat at the same table where he slapped me, sat like I belonged there. I didn't flinch, didn't look away. I just waited. At exactly 9, the doorbell rang. Caleb glanced up, frowning. "You expecting someone?" "Yes." One word. Calm, controlled. The bell rang again. I stood and walked to the door, my legs more stable than they had any right to be. When I opened it, there he was, Daniel Ortiz. Tall, confident, suit crisp, briefcase in hand, the kind of man who filled a doorway with purpose. "Good morning, Miss Evelyn," he said gently. Then he lifted his eyes past me. When he spoke again, his voice turned cold, professional, unshakable. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter, my name is Daniel Ortiz. I'm an attorney specializing in elder abuse cases. We need to talk." Caleb appeared behind me, his face drained of color. "Mom, what did you do?" I stepped aside. I asked for help. Daniel walked in without being invited. He set his briefcase on the entry table, opened it, and laid out a folder thick with printed pages. "These," he said, "are preliminary documents. A cease and desist, a notice of intent to pursue an elder abuse investigation, and restraining order paperwork we expect to file today." Naomi stormed forward, barefoot, furious. "This is insane. We let her live here. We take care of her." Daniel slid another paper her way. "These are your financial records. Mrs. Carter receives $1,200 a month in disability. You require $500 in house expenses and additional charges for water, electricity, and groceries, none of which you've itemized or justified." "That's normal," Naomi snapped. "For rent," Daniel said evenly, "not exploitation." He pulled out photographs, my tiny bathroom, the mold in the corner, the broken window lock, my receipts, my medications. And then, finally, the picture of my cheek from this morning. Purple, swollen, undeniable. Caleb's face collapsed. "Mom, we can talk about this." "No," Daniel cut in. "You will not speak to her directly." And right then, right in the middle of the tension so thick it could have choked me, the doorbell rang again. Daniel smiled. Perfect timing. I opened the door. Standing there were 3 people, a woman with a camera bag, a county investigator with a clipboard, and a tall man with tired eyes I recognized immediately. Jada Brooks, investigative journalist. Adult Protective Services, and Malik Jones, Caleb's old college roommate, the boy I once fed casseroles to when he was broke and hopeless, now a forensic accountant. Jada stepped inside. "Hi, Evelyn," she said softly, then louder for Caleb and Naomi to hear. "I'm covering a story on elder abuse in upper-income households. Anyone want to make a statement?" Naomi let out a strangled sound. The APS investigator lifted her clipboard. "We received a report this morning. I need to interview Miss Evelyn separately." And Malik, sweet Malik, he crossed the room straight to me, knelt down, and took my hand in his big, warm palm. "Miss Evelyn," he whispered, voice breaking, "I'm so sorry." Then his face hardened. He stood tall, turned toward Caleb, and said, "Living room, now." The house that never felt like mine was suddenly filled with people who chose me, people who believed me, people ready to fight for me. And as the APS investigator gently guided me to the couch, the white couch Naomi never let me sit on, I realized something. I wasn't alone. Not anymore. If you've ever had your whole life picked apart while you sit there trying not to cry, then you understand the kind of morning I had. The APS investigator, Miss Green, sat beside me on that snow-white couch Naomi always guarded like it was made of gold. Her voice was calm, steady, patient. "Miss Evelyn, do you feel safe here?" Safe. Such a small word. Such a heavy question. "No," I said. Not whispered, not trembled, said. She nodded and kept writing. Pages filled with my answers. 6 months of small humiliations, quiet tears, counted pills, skipped meals, and swallowed pride. I told her about the smoke, the money, the isolation, the slap. All of it. Every detail I had forced myself to survive. Across the room, Daniel stood like a wall between Caleb and Naomi and me. Jada and her photographer documented everything. The house, the guest room, the bathroom I was allowed to use, the mold, the receipts taped to the fridge. Every click of their camera felt like a tiny piece of justice being carved into place. Then the front door opened again. Malik returned from the kitchen with a stack of printed documents, financial records he'd already dug up before arriving. He placed them gently on the coffee table, like he was lowering a heavy truth between us all. "Caleb," he said, his voice low and controlled, "let's talk." My son stepped forward, shoulders lifted, jaw clenched, sweat beading near his temple. He looked like a boy pretending to be a man. Malik didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "You told your mother you couldn't help her. You told her money was tight." He flipped one page. "You and Naomi made more than $500,000 last year." Naomi's arm shot out like she could snatch the papers from the air. Malik didn't even look at her. "You charged her $500 a month," he continued, "and then added fees you couldn't explain. You spent $4,000 on restaurants last month. Flip. $3,000 on clothes. Flip. $2,000 on spa weekends." Naomi snapped. "We work hard. We deserve." "You don't deserve her money," Malik said sharply, "and you sure didn't deserve to put your hands on her." Caleb's face cracked. Not enough to break, just enough to show the fear behind the arrogance. Before he could answer, Miss Green closed her notebook. "I've seen enough," she said. Her tone shifted. Soft for me, firm for them. "Miss Evelyn cannot remain in this home. It is unsafe." My breath caught, not from fear, but relief I didn't expect to feel so fast. Daniel stepped beside me. "I've already arranged accommodations. She'll stay in a safe, private residence until legal actions are complete." Naomi's voice rose to a shrill pitch. "You're taking her side? She's exaggerating. But her words crumbled when the front door opened again. A tall man in a charcoal suit walked in, badge displayed. The district attorney's liaison. "Mr. Carter, Mrs. Carter," he said, "we need statements regarding assault, financial exploitation, and neglect." Naomi staggered back like the words hit her physically. Caleb whispered, "Mom, please." Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "I'm sorry." Just, "Please." Like I owed him something. For the first time in months, I realized I didn't owe him anything. Miss Green touched my arm gently. "Let's pack your things." I rose slowly, legs shaky, but heart steady. As she guided me toward the stairs, I heard Jada speaking into her recorder, her voice crisp. "Case file. Evelyn Carter, 74, victim of elder abuse in a suburban Texas home." My story. My pain. Becoming something bigger. Something that could help people like me. In the guest room, Miss Green helped fold my clothes into the same old suitcase I'd carried in months ago. Everything I owned fit inside. It always had. But this time, the room felt different. It wasn't a prison anymore. It was a stepping stone. I paused to look at the graduation photo on the nightstand. My fingers hovered over the frame. I left it there. That boy was gone. I didn't need the picture to remember the love I gave. Downstairs, Daniel waited with the APS team. Malik stood near the doorway, arms crossed, ready to shield me from anything that tried to touch me. Jada nodded gently when our eyes met, as if to say, "I see you. Your voice matters now." As I stepped outside into the warm Texas air, I didn't feel old or helpless. I felt free. And as the door clicked shut behind me, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Caleb and Naomi had no idea what was coming next. If you've ever walked out of a house feeling lighter than the suitcase in your hand, then you know what I felt the moment that front door closed behind me. The sun was bright, the air warm, and for the first time in half a year, I could breathe without asking permission. Daniel opened the passenger door of his car for me. "Take your time," he said gently. No rush, no impatience, no sighs. Just kindness. The kind I had almost forgotten existed. As we pulled away, I didn't look back. Some doors aren't meant to be revisited. We drove to his office, a quiet building tucked into a row of oak trees. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and paper, safe, familiar things. He guided me into a conference room with cushioned chairs and sunlight streaming through tall windows. "Before anything moves forward," Daniel said, "I need to walk you through your rights and your options." I nodded. My lungs still rattled a little, but my heartbeat was steady. He opened a folder thick with documents. "First, you're protected now. We're filing for an emergency restraining order today. They cannot contact you, approach you, or come within 500 feet. 500 feet! It sounded like a moat around my peace. Second," he continued, "we're filing charges: financial exploitation, neglect, endangerment, and assault." My stomach tightened, not from fear, but from old motherly instincts that still tugged at me, even after everything. "He's still my son," I murmured. Daniel's expression softened. "And you're still a human being who deserves dignity. Love doesn't erase harm." I closed my eyes and nodded. A soft knock at the door interrupted us. When it opened, Malik stepped in, carrying 2 coffees and a bag of pastries. "I figured you haven't eaten," he said. He set the bag in front of me, and the smell of warm cinnamon rose into the air. My eyes stung, not from pain, but from the reminder that someone cared enough to think about my breakfast. "You raised me too, Miss Evelyn," Malik said quietly. "I'll never forget that." I squeezed his hand. His warmth steadied me more than the coffee ever could. After he left, Daniel cleared his throat gently. "There's something else you should know." He slid another document toward me. Photographs, printouts, screenshots. "This," he said, "is your insurance record. We subpoenaed your pharmacy receipts. You've been skipping medications." "I couldn't afford all of them," I whispered. Daniel's jaw tightened. "That alone is grounds for emergency protective action. They deprived you of basic medical care." He flipped to another page. Photos of the bathroom mold, the receipts Naomi padded, screenshots of Caleb transferring money out of my account for safekeeping. My humiliation turned into something else: resolve. A woman can only break so many times before the pieces learn how to hold themselves together. After a while, Daniel looked at me gently. "I need to ask something uncomfortable." "Go ahead." "When Caleb hit you, was this the first time?" I swallowed. My cheek throbbed at the memory. "Yes," I said, "and the last." A quiet strength settled in the room. Daniel nodded once, a promise in his eyes. "Good. Today is the beginning of your protection." Before we left, he asked, "There's someone who wants to see you, if you're up for it." My brows lifted. "Who?" A soft knock sounded again. Then the door opened. There she was, Jada Brooks, the journalist, camera strap over her shoulder, notebook in hand. But her expression wasn't that of a reporter. It was the expression of a woman who recognized another woman's strength. "Miss Evelyn," she said softly, "I came to thank you." "Thank me? For what?" "For speaking up," she said. "Most cases like yours never see daylight, but you lit a match." My eyes widened. "What match?" She handed me a printed email. It was from an editor. The subject line read, "Feature request, elder abuse in affluent homes." Below it, a note. "Evelyn's case could open a national conversation. We want the story." My breath hitched. A national conversation? Because of me? Jada smiled. "People think abuse only happens behind rundown doors. You just proved them wrong." I didn't know whether to cry or laugh, so I did neither. I just sat there holding the paper, my fingers trembling slightly. Before leaving, Jada leaned close and said, "When you're ready, I want to hear everything. Not for the article, just because your story matters." When she left, the room felt quieter, softer. Daniel stood. "We should get you settled in your temporary place." I gathered my suitcase, my cardigan, the folder of documents. As we stepped outside, the Texas sky stretched wide and blue overhead. I drew in a slow breath, still scratchy, but full. Somewhere behind us, Caleb and Naomi were sitting in their big, beautiful house, unaware of how fast their foundation was shifting under their feet. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small. I felt ready. There's a strange kind of peace that comes when the worst has already happened. When you've been hit, humiliated, and pushed to the edge, and somehow you're still standing. That's the peace I felt as Daniel drove me to the small rental cottage his firm used for clients in crisis. Quiet, private, sunlight spilling across the porch. It wasn't fancy the way Caleb's house was fancy. It was warm, lived in, safe. Daniel carried my suitcase inside. "Food stocked, bathrooms accessible, security systems active," he said. "You're here until the court decides next steps." I nodded. "Thank you, Danny." "You saved my life once," he said quietly. "This doesn't even scratch the surface of paying that back." After he left, I walked through the little cottage breathing deep. The air was clean, no smoke, no tension, no walking on eggshells. I set my cardigan on a chair, eased myself into the sofa, and let the silence wash over me. For the first time in months, I didn't feel watched. I didn't feel like a burden. I didn't feel afraid. That night, I slept for 12 hours straight. The next morning, I woke to my phone buzzing. It was Malik. "On my way, don't move, bringing breakfast." I smiled. That boy always thought food solved everything. When he arrived, he set 2 bags on the kitchen table. The smell of warm blueberry muffins filled the room. "I checked in with Daniel," he said, pulling out plates. "You're protected. Court hearing is scheduled. APS is backing everything." He hesitated then, looked at me in that gentle way he used to when he was 20, and didn't want me to see how scared he was of failing his exams. "You okay?" I nodded. "Better than I was 3 days ago." "I should have checked on you sooner," he murmured. I knew Caleb pulled away from everyone, but I didn't think. I placed my hand over him. "You were living your life. Don't carry blame that isn't yours." He swallowed hard and nodded. After breakfast, he pulled out his laptop and dozens of printed pages. "These are Caleb's financials. Daniel's gathering more, but," he sighed, "it's worse than we thought." He showed me the numbers. Transfers, withdrawals, hidden accounts. Not only had Caleb been taking from me, he'd been taking from Naomi too. Their perfect life was held together by secrets and overspending. "Does she know?" I asked. "Not yet," he said, "but she will." I leaned back, absorbing everything. Not out of spite, not out of satisfaction, just out of clarity. My son wasn't a monster because of Naomi. He wasn't cruel because of stress. He made choices that harmed me. Malik packed his files and stood to leave. "I'll come by tomorrow. Call me if you need anything." As soon as the door closed behind him, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. "Miss Evelyn?" the woman said when I answered. "This is Karen Simmons with Adult Protective Services. I wanted to let you know Caleb and Naomi have been served. They're aware of the investigation." I exhaled slowly. How did they react? A pause. Then, Mr. Carter became defensive. Mrs. Carter attempted to deny everything. We advised them to retain counsel. "Of course," I murmured. "Also," she continued, "I spoke with the district attorney. The evidence is compelling. They're considering criminal charges. You did the right thing coming forward." The right thing. I hung up and sat quietly for a long moment, hands folded in my lap. I had spent months trying to shrink myself to keep the peace. Months convincing myself that discomfort was normal, that asking for help was selfish. that my son's anger was somehow my fault. But now, with each phone call, each document, each step of the process, I felt myself expand again. I felt my dignity returning to me piece by piece. Around noon, Jada visited. She brought a notebook and a soft smile. "I'm not here to interview you today," she said, "just checking in." We sat on the porch while she sipped iced tea. She didn't rush me, didn't push. She just listened while I talked about small things: my childhood, my old job at the thrift store, my favorite books. She laughed easily, nodded warmly, and when she stood to leave, she said, "Your story is going to help people, more than you know." Help people. Imagine that. The next morning, Daniel called. "Evelyn, the DA's office wants to meet. We have leverage, a lot of it. Caleb and Naomi may settle to avoid a public trial." Public. For a moment, my breath caught in my throat. Not from illness, just the weight of everything. "Will I have to see them again?" I asked quietly. "Not unless you choose to." I closed my eyes and nodded. "Okay," I whispered. "Let's move forward." As I hung up the phone, I realized something so simple, so powerful. For the first time in a long time, the future didn't scare me. It felt like possibility. It felt like hope. It felt like mine. There's a moment in every storm when the wind settles just enough for you to hear yourself think again. That's what the next few days felt like, calm between waves. I stayed in the little cottage, breathing clean air, taking my medications on time, letting my body remember what rest felt like. But peace doesn't last long when justice is unfolding. 3 days after I moved in, Daniel called. "Evelyn, the settlement meeting is scheduled for this afternoon. They've agreed to negotiate." Negotiate. Such a polite word for everything they had done. When we reached the law office, Daniel helped me out of the car. The building was tall and glassy, the kind of place people in expensive suits walked into with purpose. Inside, the conference room was long, polished, intimidating. But the chair Daniel pulled out for me felt sturdy, grounding. Across the table sat Caleb and Naomi with their attorney. Naomi looked smaller without her usual armor. No designer clothes, no perfect ponytail. Caleb's face was pale, jaw tight, eyes darting anywhere except toward mine. For a moment, I had to remind myself to breathe. Daniel opened his folder. "We'll begin with our conditions." Their attorney leaned forward. "My clients want a peaceful resolution." Daniel didn't let him finish. "Peaceful resolutions begin with accountability." He laid out the demands one by one, each one a brick in the foundation of justice. Full return of all money taken from me, coverage of all medical expenses, past and future, a formal public apology, a permanent restraining order, mandatory elder care training, and then something that surprised even me, a scholarship fund in my name for caregivers pursuing healthcare careers. Naomi gasped, "You can't be serious." Daniel met her eyes. "It's non-negotiable." Their attorney rubbed his temples. "This is extensive." "It's merciful," Daniel said. "Considering the alternative is a public trial with criminal charges, media coverage, and permanent reputational damage." Naomi's mask cracked. "This will ruin us." "No," Daniel replied calmly. "Your actions did that." The room went silent. For a moment, Caleb looked like a man drowning. His eyes finally lifted to mine, just for a second. But in that second, I saw everything. Regret, fear, shame, and something else. The ghost of the boy I raised. But ghosts can't change the past. When their attorney asked for a private moment, they stepped out of the room. I stared at the polished table, my reflection faint in the surface. I didn't look like a victim. Not anymore. When they returned, Caleb's shoulders sagged. Naomi's eyes were rimmed with red. "We'll settle," the attorney said. Just like that. Years of sacrifice, months of suffering, one slap that changed everything. And now, justice, quiet and steady. As we gathered our things, Caleb spoke for the first time. Mom, I never meant for... Daniel's hand lifted. This is not the time. And he was right. I didn't need explanations, didn't need apologies spoken in private while consequences happened in public, didn't need him to rewrite the story to make himself feel better. I needed peace. I needed distance. I needed myself. Later that evening, back at the cottage, Malik showed up with takeout containers and a stack of blankets his girlfriend insisted I have. "You're gonna love the stew," he said, unpacking the food. "It cures anything but taxes." I laughed louder than I expected to. It felt good, healing. As we ate, he gave me an update from Jada's newsroom. "Your story is sparking calls from people all over Texas. APS said they're seeing more reports. You started something." I set my spoon down, feeling a warmth spread through my chest that wasn't sadness or fear. It was purpose. Even if my lungs were failing, my voice wasn't. After Malik left, I stood at the little window of the cottage, watching the sun dip behind the trees. The sky glowed orange, soft and forgiving. For the first time in a long time, I didn't think about what I lost. I thought about what I'd gained. Safety, support, my own strength, and a story that might just keep someone else alive. I turned off the lights, climbed into bed, and let my body sink into the mattress without fear someone would knock on my door and complain I was coughing too loudly. Tomorrow, Daniel said, we'd finalize the paperwork. Tomorrow, Naomi and Caleb would sign everything. Tomorrow, I'd begin a life that belonged only to me. And for once, tomorrow didn't scare me. If you've ever woken up and felt the weight on your chest lift before you even opened your eyes, then you'll understand the morning I'm about to tell you about. For the first time in months, I didn't wake up dreading footsteps outside my door. I didn't wake up rehearsing how to stay quiet. I didn't wake up wondering if today would be the day Caleb snapped again. I woke up knowing I was free. Daniel picked me up just after 10. "Today is just signatures," he said as we drove toward his office. Nothing unexpected. But my heart still beat a little faster. Freedom is beautiful, but it's also unfamiliar when you've been surviving for so long. Inside the conference room, the settlement papers sat stacked in neat piles, pen on top, room quiet, air heavy with finality. A few minutes later, Caleb and Naomi walked in. Naomi looked like someone drained all the glitter out of her life, hair unstyled, eyes swollen, clothes plain. Caleb, though, he looked older, shoulders slumped, face hollow, like the weight of his choices had finally settled on him. Neither of them looked at me. Their attorney slid the papers forward. "We'll sign an order." Daniel nodded. "Start at the top." Page after page, their signatures appeared. Refund of all the money they took, full medical coverage, restraining order, mandatory training, public apology. And then the part Daniel added, the annual scholarship fund in my name. With every stroke of Caleb's pen, a string between us snapped. When it was my turn, Daniel tapped the line. "Right here, for closure." I signed my name slow, steady, Evelyn Carter, a name I was reclaiming. When we finished, their attorney immediately gathered the papers as if afraid someone might change their mind. Naomi pushed her chair back a little too fast. She stood, one hand gripping the table for balance. "This is ridiculous," she muttered. "All of this over a misunderstanding." Daniel didn't even blink. A misunderstanding doesn't leave bruises. Naomi's jaw tightened, but she said nothing else. She walked out without looking back. Caleb stayed seated. His hand trembled as he gathered his briefcase. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to speak. My heart pulled, reflectively, painfully, because even after everything, a piece of me remembered the boy he used to be. But he didn't say a word, and I didn't offer one, because healing sometimes means letting silence finish what love couldn't. After they left, I exhaled a long breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "It's done," Daniel said softly. "You're protected now." I nodded. "Thank you for everything." He placed a hand over mine. "You deserve safety and respect. Those aren't luxuries." Back at the cottage, the afternoon sun spilled through the windows in warm stripes. I made myself tea, something I hadn't done in months because Naomi hated kitchen smells. I sat on the little couch with my blanket over my legs and breathed in the softness of it all. Then, another knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I looked through the peephole, my breath caught. It was Jada. She held a folder and 2 envelopes. When I opened the door, she stepped in gently. "I wanted to bring this in person," she said. "The article goes live tomorrow. We wanted your approval on the final edits." She handed me the folder. Inside were the pages of the story, my story, carefully written, respectfully told. No sensationalizing, no twisting, just truth. I felt tears prick my eyes. "You wrote it beautifully," I whispered. "You lived it beautifully," she said. She placed the 2 envelopes on the table. One is from APS. They confirmed additional charges may follow. The other is from a woman who read the early summary I submitted to my editor. I opened that envelope first. Inside was a handwritten letter from a woman in Dallas caring for her elderly mother. She wrote, "Your courage gave me the strength to ask for help. I thought I was alone. Thank you for showing me I'm not." My hand shook as I held it. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a woman surviving a storm. I felt like a lighthouse. Jada squeezed my shoulder gently, then left me to sit with that feeling. Warm, full, powerful. Night fell quietly. I sat by the window watching the porch light glow. My lungs still ached sometimes, but tonight they didn't feel like they were fighting a losing battle. Tonight, they felt like they were breathing possibility. Tomorrow, the world would see my story, and I was finally ready for it. If you've ever felt life shift under your feet, quietly, gently, like the ground finally decided to hold you instead of swallow you, then you'll understand the morning everything came full circle for me. I was sitting in the cottage kitchen, wrapped in my soft blanket, sipping the good tea Malik always brought me. Birds chattered outside the window, and the light was warm enough to make the whole room glow. For once, my lungs cooperated. For once, breathing didn't feel like a war. I felt peaceful. Then my phone buzzed. It was an email alert. Jada Brooks' article was live. My hands shook a little as I opened it. There, in bold letters, was the title. "When Family Fails, the Hidden Crisis of Elder Abuse in Affluent Homes, One Woman's Fight for Justice." My story, my truth, out in the world for everyone to see. I read each word slowly, tears slipping down my cheeks. Not the kind born from pain, but from release. Jada had honored me. She had honored what I endured. And she had honored the part of me that refused to stay silent. Before I finished reading, there was a knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. Again. Through the peephole, I saw a familiar silhouette. Caleb. The restraining order meant he wasn't supposed to be there. I should have walked away. I should have called Daniel. But something in me, some old, stubborn part, needed to hear what he came to say. I cracked the door, but kept the chain on. His eyes were red, tired, older than they'd been a month ago. In his hands, he held a white envelope. "Mom," he whispered, "please, 5 minutes." "You're not supposed to be here," I said quietly. "I know. I needed to say something to your face." A long silence stretched between us, a silence holding every broken promise, every bruise, every night I'd counted ceiling cracks to stay sane. "I'm sorry," he said finally. His voice trembled. "I know that doesn't fix it. I know it's too late. I just needed you to know I'm sorry." His shoulders sagged. He held the envelope out through the gap. "This is a check for $50,000. It's what I have in liquid savings. It doesn't make anything right, but it's yours." I didn't touch it. "I don't want your money, Caleb." He closed his eyes. "Then what do you want?" The answer wasn't complicated. It wasn't angry. It wasn't hopeful either. "I want you to be better," I said softly. "Not for me, for yourself, and for the next elderly person you meet. I want you to remember how you treated me, and choose differently." He started crying, soft, broken sounds, but I didn't open the door. Some wounds need distance to heal. I love you, he whispered, voice cracking. I know I have a terrible way of showing it, but I love you. I know, I said, but love without respect is just another form of harm, and I won't accept that anymore. He nodded, slowly, painfully. Then he set the envelope on the porch. If you ever need anything, I'm here. I didn't answer. I just closed the door gently and slid the chain back in place. Behind the door, I heard him sob once, raw and human, before walking away. Later that afternoon, Malik stopped by. When he saw the envelope on my porch, he shook his head. Want me to handle this? He asked. Yes, I said. Donate it. Or burn it. I don't care. He grinned. Donate it is. Fire hazard otherwise. We laughed, and it felt honest, warm, healing. He sat with me for a while, drinking tea, sharing stories about his week. When he hugged me goodbye, he said, "Love you, Mama Evelyn." And I realized love didn't disappear from my life. It just came from the people who chose to stay. That evening, as I sat by the window watching the sun slide behind the trees, my phone buzzed again. A message from Jada. The first scholarship recipient has been chosen, a woman caring for her father with dementia. Your story made her believe she could go back to school. My chest filled with something warm and steady. This was what my pain had built. Not revenge, not bitterness. Legacy, hope, protection for others who might have felt as invisible as I once did. I looked out at the birds perched on the feeder Malik installed for me, their tiny wings fluttering in the orange light. I breathed deep, slow, steady, free. For the first time in a long time, the life ahead of me felt bigger than the life behind me. I wasn't just surviving. I was living. I was enough. And I still am. If you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or unappreciated by the very people you sacrificed everything for, you're not alone. Tell me in the comments, what lesson hit you the hardest in this story? And if you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Don't stop here. Click the next video on your screen to hear another powerful story of quiet strength and unexpected justice. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Mabel Stories so you never miss a story that reminds you just how strong the human spirit can be. I'll see you in the next one.